Welcome everyone to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for January 16th to the 22nd of 2017. I'm Athen, and this channel is about using the actual constellations in the sky, known as Sidereal Astrology. If you are new, be sure to check out the link down below because the signs are different. All right, so this week we've got a few things going on, as you can see here in the transit graph. Essentially, in the bigger picture sense, we are coming off from a full moon last week. So things are still moving forward. And I think there is a bit of momentum this first half of the week, generally speaking. And it's just an excellent week to really be moving any insights forward that we did get last week. We'll go into the individual signs to see which areas this is involved for you personally. But let's go and look at this collectively for everyone. So starting off the week here, Monday and Tuesday, we do have Mars going over Chiron. So this is a new beginning, a new chapter. And this particularly has to do with healing our personal confidence, perhaps, maybe our drive, our motivation, our independence, and maybe our personal needs. Basically, all this stuff that is represented by Mars, which is that drive, that personal need of ours, is going through a healing. And so I think naturally there will be a refreshment, a rejuvenation here Monday and Tuesday having to do with these things. And all in all, just a new chapter of this, of doing that inner healing, that inner acceptance about, this inner self that might have to do with motivation, drive, confidence, and these types of things. Now, this is all in the area of Pisces, which is where Chiron's been helping us heal. With Mars recently entering Pisces last week, there has been this subtle shift towards a bit more about receptivity and getting things done in a more accepting sort of way. Mars, again, is about the drive. It's about the action. It's about what we want. But collectively, now with Mars in Pisces, it's more intuitive, right? It's more about following that current of life versus fighting the current, trying to swim upstream or go exactly where we want to go. And that can be tiring, and also could be a way of not getting anything done, actually. So this week, I think it's great to continue to find that current, be receptive, intuitive, listen to that inner gut, and see where things take you. And through that, that's how we can be getting a lot done. We can have that motivation, that drive, and those personal needs met to a degree. So with Chiron, though, maybe some healing about this, maybe about where we can let go, where we can do some accepting in our life, and surrendering. And all of that can be very rejuvenating and, again, motivating or boosting a bit of that confidence and personal self-esteem, you could say, with Mars. All right, so that's the first couple days of the week. Going into Tuesday and Wednesday, Mercury will be trining up to the North Node, which does suggest a bit of support towards the life path. Not a major thing. We usually don't feel this very personally because the nodes aren't a planet. They're just this, theoretical angle in the sky. So it's an undercurrent, though. And I think as an undercurrent to the first half, there is a lot to learn. And I think it's a lot about our own personal life path. So again, we'll cover this for your individual sign. But here with the North Node in Leo for all of us, this is about following that self-expression, that inner spark. All right, I've been talking a lot about this in 2016. 2017, same thing. This life path taking us towards learning more about what gives us passion, what gives us excitement, and all in all about that self-expression. So we could be learning about that. Again, this is a Mercury in Sagittarius, so we're learning a lot and have been about belief systems, our personal belief systems, our thinking patterns. Are we thinking big? Are we thinking limiting? It's about seeing basically our whole life and seeing that, yes, there is a path, there is a destiny, there is a direction. And I think we could be learning a lot about that Monday, or about Tuesday through Wednesday in particular. Okay, and you can even check your birth chart to see where your North Node is, because it'll always relate back to the birth chart depending on where it's placed. And for those of you who've gotten a reading from me in the past, you know that I spend a good amount of time on the North Node, a lot of time, because it's the life path direction. It's the destiny. It's where we can consciously utilize our attention and our focus. So you can check your birth chart, see where that is, and it will relate to that. But again, we'll cover this for your individual signs. All right, so a lot to learn this first half of the week. And then we do have that Mars squaring up to Saturn about midweek here, Wednesday through Friday. So with this one, this is a challenging aspect, as all squares are, especially ones with Saturn. So collectively, again, with that motivation, with that drive, there is a bit of blocking or a feeling of being blocked or maybe restricted in some way. And the reason is that, again, Mars wants to come through the gates right away, get things done, but Saturn says, hold off a second. Let's do this with patience. Let's do this thinking about the big picture. Let's not just rush into things. So it's two aspects of the self, both personally and collectively, that are quite different. Similar in that they're both about goals and things we want and the big picture and all this, about pursuing that. But taking it nice and slow with the square up to Saturn, because Mars in a square, it can feel a bit clashed. Our ego can feel a bit clashed, like we're not getting what we want. We're not getting our needs met, or we don't have that independence, or we don't have the confidence or the wherewithal, sometimes feeling like we can't pursue those things we want. So the best way of working with this is with Saturn, taking a step back. This is the classic 2 steps forward, Mars, 1 step back, Saturn, thinking about the big picture. And just being patient this week. In fact, it's been such an important time to be patient in general. With that full moon report I talked about last week, it's all these squares and this grand cross forming up in the sky. So with this one, I think it's great to collectively set intentions, pursue things, and challenge ourselves to maybe pursue some things and take some actions in life. Again, relating to that Pisces energy of finding the current and listening to that intuition. But being willing to take a step back to modify or to, do the responsible thing or the patient thing, the grounded thing, right? That does take time. So I think if you do have patience, I think if you are willing to take a step back occasionally this week, I think this can be very constructive. And as a result, with that intention, you can be building things. Again, that's what the square represents. That's what Saturn represents. And as long as that big picture is in mind, I think you could certainly be building some foundations this week personally for you and collectively. So this is in regards to the conjunction that we had between Mars and Saturn back in late August. Okay, if there was anything in late August that you started new that had to do with new structures in your life, or maybe it had to do with new goals, ambitions for the future, this is a time where we do come to our first major challenge with it in the square. Okay, so good to challenge ourselves. If there's anything in particular that you've been working on since late August or that's been requiring that patience, a good time to move the energy forward. But again, seeing the big picture. All right, so that's Mars square Saturn, probably the most important aspect we've got this week. And then as we get into Friday, we do have Venus sextiling up to Pluto, which is a sort of opening, a sort of opportunity. And this is about maybe to pursue some values, some things we enjoy in life. And this has been Venus, who's been transiting Aquarius, which is about connecting to our free-spirited side and enjoying the things that we value about freedom, all right? Both about ourselves and maybe even about relationships. The value of having freedom in relationships, or maybe connecting to friends or group or community things sometimes with Aquarius, or the world at large, connecting to what's going on globally or something like that. So whatever it is we can be enjoying about freedom, about our individuality, or about the community, big or small, I think it can be very good this week. And it's a sort of opening to do that. It's not a major aspect like a trine where it just happens, but it's certainly it's certainly there. It's certainly an opportunity to cultivate those things. And this all relates back to late November. Late November, we had a sort of transformation with our values, with relationships, perhaps, our perspective of them, probably some things being stripped away, some old patterns, which was the conjunction with Pluto. But now we've got this bit of flow of maybe something presenting itself this week, some value, maybe something in relationships or partnership or something like that, that can perhaps move some of those things forward. Okay, again, the early phases of the lunar cycle, or of the cycle with Venus and Pluto, does suggest this opening to plant some new seeds, or continuing with any new seeds we've planted regarding those values. All right, so that's all the aspects. And then the week does end with the sun going into Capricorn Saturday and Sunday. So there is this collective shift towards a bit of a more reserved type of focus. Capricorn is about, just like Saturn, seeing the big picture, all right? And collectively, I think we will be getting things done probably in a more reserved way, a more patient way. or a way of, more of the productive and grounded and seeing the big picture. So that'll be a collective shift. And again, we'll talk about which house this is shifting into for you personally, but certainly this shift of focus coming from what has been and will continue to be quite Sagittarian, because Mercury's still in Sagittarius, which is more about the open road, the open horizon, seeing those, again, possibilities. But now with the sun going into Capricorn, probably a bit more about doing things in a reserved and grounded sort of way, and expressing ourselves in such a way as well. All right, so that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up collectively is that we do have this beginning of the week, which I think there is some healing taking place, again, in regards to the self, in regards to our personal needs, the ego, if you will, which is Mars, that self orientation, and maybe some things we're learning about our life path this first half. Then midweek, we do have a bit of a collective clash, you could say, but it's about the limitation to self, having patience, having discipline this week. I think could be very constructive. As a result, could be some things being built this week. Then as we approach the weekend on Friday, some new values, again, maybe since late November, something new about what we enjoy, maybe about freedom, maybe about being who we are, things like this, but something opening up there, generally speaking. And then as we get into the weekend and next week, the sun shifting into Capricorn does suggest this way we're expressing ourselves and the way we're focused on things being much more reserved and grounded. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the individual signs. At this point, you can go down to the comment section and click the timestamp next to your sign, and that'll take you directly to your sign's portion. I do recommend you watch this for your ascendant, but you may find the sun and moon equally or sometimes even more accurate. But if you want the best, most well-rounded picture, do watch all three: sun, moon, ascendant, or maybe sun and ascendant, depending. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this for the individual signs. Aries, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's go and have a look first at your ruler Mars, who is forming a lot of aspects this week, going over Chiron, squaring up to Saturn, and he's recently shifted into your 12th house. So this week for you Aries, I think it is very much about your inner exploration. I think it is a great week for that. Maybe getting your alone time, reflecting on things a bit, particularly about where you can have more peace in your life. That's essentially what the 12th house is about. And with your ruler here, I think through the alone time or through meditation or prayer or things like this, you are getting in touch with yourself spiritually and doing that acceptance. It's really about accepting ourselves, accepting life and everything, whatever it is about us or about our life in the present moment, accepting it and being grateful even. And through that, finding the peace and tranquility that is the time of the 12th house, the last house of the birth chart or of the, astrology chart. So good for that. I think this first few days with your ruler over Chiron, maybe doing some healing. Maybe it's psychological healing, maybe some spiritual healing. I don't think it's going to be particularly difficult because it's a conjunction. In fact, it's mostly just starting a new beginning with healing this deeper part of yourself and doing that acceptance work. So it could be, again, very good for spiritual activities, could be good for self-exploration and anything else that you might consider, an undercurrent to life. Or maybe you're just finding that working a bit behind the scenes is healing, is enjoyable. Or maybe you're getting things done in a much more receptive way. In fact, that's the best way of working with Mars in the 12th house. With those personal needs and those intentions, it's about finding that current. right? It's like the spiritual warrior. It's like you can take action, you can get a lot done, you can be very powerful, in fact, very active, but with presence, using tools perhaps like meditation and things like this to center yourself. And, as a result, you're finding the current, flowing with the current of life in every now moment versus fighting upstream. So that's kind of it's like for you this week in regards to your ruler. And then the square up to Saturn about midweek does suggest that there can be a bit of a clash, maybe a bit of a blockage or something regarding something external, or maybe it's just internal, maybe it's just a feeling of this. So again, just like I was saying in the general, taking the step back occasionally and just kind of loosening up the reins a little bit here this week. So it's also good too to see that this is about combining what has been very important for you to really be building what matters most to you in life. And that's been Saturn in your 8th house, helping you connect to life in a much more open way, intimate way, even with your relationships, open and intimate way. And maybe it's just requiring a bit of attention on that. And again, building things that matter to you, whether it's your career, your family, relationships, whatever it might be, building it, getting involved with it because it means something to you on a deeper level. And that's essentially what the 8th house is all about, connecting to life on a deeper level, connecting to yourself on a deeper level. So maybe that's the clash. Maybe that's the challenge, is how you can go within, find this peace through acceptance. At the same time, connect to what matters most and continue to build these things. In fact, with the conjunction since late August, you may have started this new beginning at that time having to do with all this deeper stuff, this 8th house stuff. For some of you, it might be shared resources, others' resources, bonds, debts, things like that can sometimes be the 8th house. But I think for all of you, fundamentally, there's something that's been established since late August having to do with, yes, connecting to life in that deeper way. And so it's a great week to challenge yourself with that and maybe do the work to get the alone time or the receptive time or whatever it is that can be constructive. Especially because Mars rules that 8th, by the way, too. All right, so that's your ruler this week. The first half of the week, again, Mercury does trine up to the North Node. So this is a reminder that, yes, your life path is about learning about your self-expression this year and things that are close to your heart, things you're passionate about. And there can be a lot of new insights, or it's an undercurrent. Maybe you're just finding a bit of flow or something. But I think expressing yourself with that can be, just in general, expressing yourself in life, but with the things you're passionate about, I think can be a great way of working with this. And I think just all in all, you can be learning quite a bit. And that's been a Mercury in your 9th house, helping you see the big picture. So I think you still have that perspective this week. Now, as we get into the weekend, Friday, Venus will be sextiling up to Pluto. So this is a Venus who's been in your 11th house. I think it's still great to be connecting to your aspirations, maybe a bit of networks or your friends or something like that if you have been connecting on that level over the past few weeks. But some sort of opening presents itself here, and it might have to do with relationships, might have to do with finances or values. It's not a major thing, but it is a sort of opening. And in regards to this has been, if you've started anything in late November, having to do with relationships or values, particularly about stripping away the fears and the attachments to those areas. But in this case, I think it comes quite easy. I think you are deeper in your relationships this week, or can be. I think you do have a deeper understanding of your values and maybe the finances and that kind of thing, a sort of opening. But I think with the sextile, it's just great to be cultivating that, because again, it's the early phase of that cycle. So continuing to cultivate your values in terms of what they truly mean to you, and your relationships in terms of what they truly mean to you as well. All right, and then as we get into Saturday, Sunday next week, the sun is going to be shifting into your 10th house. So with this, there is greater focus, I think, on your career and productive life. In fact, that's where the new cycle is going to be. So once we have that new moon, which I believe is next week, that'll be starting some new beginnings with your career for a lot of you, your productive life, for your legacy, anything that you consider a big picture thing. So that's good. And I think over the weekend, maybe just a shift of focus can be energizing for you there, maybe give you some new insights. And then next week, once the sun starts forming some aspects, I think it'll really be heightening that and activating that 10th house of yours. All right, Aries, so that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is, yes, your ruler in the 12th house shifted into here. I believe it was last weekend. This is about getting things done in a more receptive way. Maybe getting that alone time. Maybe doing that inner work, right? Work in the sense of awareness and acceptance. It's not really active work. It's receptive work. But it does require sometimes going deep to the depths of the ocean, which is what both Pisces and the 12th house are about within you, to find that beingness, to find that acceptance. And as a result, that can be very healing with that conjunction up to Chiron. Midweek, I think there is something you can implement and bring that receptive quality into your life with the square to Saturn. And again, also connecting to things on that deeper level. And then as we get into Friday, there's this sort of opening with your values, with relationships perhaps. Then as we get into Saturday and Sunday, this shift of focus towards the productive and career side of things, all right, which could be, again, planting a sort of new beginning, just not quite just yet, but next week or when we have the next new moon. All right, so Aries, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, shares, and I will see you all next week. Take care. All right, Taurus, let's go ahead and have a look for you this week. So first things first, let's talk about the fact that Mars has recently shifted into your 11th house. So you may have noticed since last weekend, there has been more of a shift towards your aspirations. Maybe more motivation here, more drive for some of you, maybe to connect to your network circles, friends, and community could quite possibly be it. But I think most fundamentally, it is about those aspirations and those ideals, those hopes and wishes for the future. So there is good motivation here, and there will be for some time, for a couple months actually, with Mars in Pisces. But this week, I think there is some shifting and sort of some new energy to become acclimated to with that, because it's the beginning of the transit. We got Mars going over Chiron, so there is some healing that I think you could be doing these first few days of the week. Maybe essentially it's about acceptance. Seeing if there's any wounds that come to the surface, because the fact of the matter is that Chiron's recently come into your 11th, which means, yes, over these coming years, you are healing any wounds around your ability to cultivate your aspirations in life, or maybe about your connection to your community and your ability to be a part of a community or something like that, or your friends or whatever. So there is a wound coming up about this, but it's all subjective, it's all internal. Know that it doesn't reflect your inability of these areas. It's not like that. It's just the personal wounds that come up. So great first few days to do the healing with that, to do the acceptance regarding it, and then that can be very refreshing, and it could refresh you, could even, again, motivate you and give you that confidence to pursue those aspirations. Now, the square up to Saturn, which will be midweek, Wednesday through Friday, does suggest that there is a bit of clash collectively, and it might have to do with all these aspirations. All right, but it's important not to take it too seriously with Saturn, if it is something like that, and to just take things nice and slow. Again, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Seeing the big picture. This is all in regards to whatever you started back in late August. Maybe it had to do with relationships. It was all in your 7th house. Even Mars rules your 7th house. So I think a big theme of this is about your one-to-one connections, or partnerships, or legal matters, or contracts, if it's on that level for you. But I think for all of you, fundamentally relationships. And it's the first major challenge of this from what you've started since late August regarding this. So be patient with it all. Again, there's a bigger picture here, but challenge yourself. Maybe there are some things that you can take some steps towards. And as long as you're willing to see the big picture, willing to be patient, disciplined with these actions, then I think that's a great way of working with it. Because we don't want to just let these squares pass us by. These squares, although challenging, are the times that we actually do build, that the real work is done. And again, this could have to do with the relationships, and maybe even too how you can bring in these aspirations, this community sense or whatever it is, into relationships and bridge the gap and combine those two. All right. Could even be good to challenge yourself with some alone time this week, reflective time, doing some acceptance, since Mars does rule the 12th. Okay. It might be challenging to do that too, because it's the squaring up to your 12th house ruler. Maybe there isn't a whole lot of opportunity to get the rest or whatever, but making the time, taking the action to do that, I think could be very important. All right, so that's Mars, the biggest player this week. Mercury, this first half of the week, will be trining up to the North Node. Again, as a reminder that this life path in 2017 is about your personal life, is about connecting to your home, family, or health, any of those areas, or maybe just reflecting on things a bit, just getting in touch with yourself emotionally and sentimentally. And again, cultivating that personal life of yours. So great to learn about all that. Your mind is still quite deep, I think, in your communications perhaps, which can be great. I think it's a great time to be still be expressing yourself with openness and vulnerability and just with a deep truth. But your mind in the 8th house can give you a really good sense of understanding about the deeper side of life. So whether you're doing research, whether you're, again, expressing yourself in deeper ways, whether you're learning more about yourself psychologically or spiritually or doing the transformation, or maybe some of you are just working more with others' finances or others' resources. All right, whatever that is, that's been going on. I think that's continuing, and you can learn a lot about that, as I'm sure you have already learned a lot about the deeper dimensions since Mercury's been retrograde here. That was, over the past month. All right, so that's the first half. Then as we get into Friday, your ruler will be sextiling up to Pluto. So a nice support here where I think, you are feeling probably a bit open and deep and meaningful this week. Maybe it has to do with some things that you've been or can continue to enjoy about your career or your work or your public life. Venus is up here. You can be maybe connecting with others on that sphere, relationships, or just seeing what you value about your work and career. And that can be a very beautiful thing, and that can flow going into the weekend. A lot of it, too, has been about what you've started since late November, about all this deeper stuff, particularly, I think, involving you. I think in late November, you went through a sort of transformation and change. And now there's some support with that aspect of it, of the openness, the deeper connection and all this. So that's flowing. And I think it really is coming through not only you and yourself generally, but also your career, even your work, your day-to-day work and your routine even too. All of that can be flowing quite nice with that deeper dimension. All right, then as we get into Saturday, Sunday, the sun will be shifting into your 9th. So yes, there's more transformations occurring. This is the sun leaving the 8th house, which again has been placing more of a focus on the deeper side to things. And now it's starting to, going into next week, more about opening your horizons, right? A bit of adventure maybe, open-mindedness, philosophy maybe, travel for some of you could be a new beginning. Most of this will get activated, I think it's next week when we have the new moon, or it might be 2 weeks. But that's going to be a new beginning here with all these 9th house things. Basically it's the life path house, and it's a very adventurous house, an open-minded house. But in either case, over the weekend, you'll probably notice that shift. Now again, Mercury's still in the 8th, still deep, but the sun going into the 9th, certainly this transformation of now, like the butterfly, once we've gone through that metamorphosis, we then spread our wings. We have that top-down perspective, and we have freedom too, actually, in many ways, spiritual freedom, you could say. All right, so Taurus this week, the way I would sum this up is, Mars collectively, there's some healing taking place, maybe about relationships, your perspective of them perhaps, maybe about motivating yourself towards your aspirations or networking or something like that. It can be good with patience, with discipline, seeing the big picture. Again, maybe some things since late November you started with relationships, a perspective or something like that. Now you got some challenge here, as there always is from time to time, but utilize it. Use it constructively, right? How can you integrate these aspirations, these future things and ideals and all this in a patient way with these new beginnings with relationships that started late August? And combine the two, implement the two. Now, as we get into the weekend, Friday, Venus, your ruler, will be sextiling up to Pluto. So a nice opening here, maybe about the career, deeper dimensions. I think you're just all in all quite open, and you've got that deeper side to life, which can be very good for all areas. And then over the weekend, a shift into your ninth, a new perspective, a transformation of now seeing the bigger picture. All right, Taurus, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, shares. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. All right, Taurus, see you all next week. Geminis, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look here first at, well, let's look at Mercury, your ruler, right? So he's going to be trining up to the North Node here this first half of the week. So although the North Node is not a planet, I don't know if you'll actually even be feeling this personally, but there is an undercurrent about you learning. And I think there's a lot to learn this first half of the week. A lot of it is about maybe some practical things, maybe about communication, maybe about reading, writing, things like that, exchanging, business, trade, anything that does involve that third house, which is really where the life path has been taking you, both in 2016 and now in 2017. So this is your ruler in the 7th, and I think you can also be learning about relationships. In fact, I think you've learned a lot about them this past month with Mercury here and then retrograde through here. So now that Mercury's direct, your ruler has gained his momentum. He's still in his shadow, of course. So January, for the most part, is still a time of adaptability and flexibility and all this. But yeah, moving some things forward with your perspective on relationships. Maybe quite literally some new relationships have shifted or changed that you can be cultivating this week. But whatever it is, yeah, learning, an emphasis there, connecting with others, cooperation, focusing on others' needs, all of that could certainly be highlighted. And again, with the North Node, that all could be supporting this. The relationships could be supporting you pursuing that life path of that practical learning and, whatever it is you've been doing there with the mind, the mental energy, and communication or intellect. All right, so that's your ruler this week. Now, Mars is a big... he's a big player this week. He does rule your work sector and your aspirations. So I think there's some things that are unfolding with that this week, particularly with the fact that recently, probably last weekend, you started to notice the shift towards more motivation towards maybe your career, your productive life. Okay, so that's where Mars is, in the 10th house. And so that's where the motivation can be unlocked, and that's great. Now, the thing is, first of all, there's some healing taking place. So this first half, seeing if there are any wounds, any insecurities, any doubts, anything you can accept about yourself or about your career that will help heal some wounds, because Chiron can, bring up some deep things. It's not that you're inadequate or anything like that regarding this stuff, career stuff, or about your work or about your aspirations. It's just that these are bringing up the doubts or the wounds, these inner things that we do have to accept about ourselves from time to time. So I think it's going to be more neutral in this aspect. So doing the acceptance and, the deeper diving, you could say, through that awareness, I think can be very healing and very rejuvenating, very refreshing going into the rest of the week, probably in regards to the career, probably in regards to your work and your aspirations. Okay. And I think approaching those things this week is a good way to approach healing, right? And through approaching it, you can feel healed and rejuvenated. All right, so that's the first half. Then about midweek, Wednesday through Friday, Mars will then be squaring up to Saturn. So again, collectively, there is this bit of clash going on. It's mostly just so we're building resilience and patience, learning those type of life experience lessons, which is what Saturn's all about. But anyways, with the career, with the productive life, yes, maybe there is a bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's okay. Take the steps, challenge yourself. Take this area in a sense that, there's a motivation and drive here. And although there's a much bigger picture with it all, there can be things that can be built, particularly within you, your resilience, your patience, this inner groundedness. So it's more grounded, more mature, right? You could say even too with Saturn. So great there. Also too, with disciplining yourself with your routine this week can be very important, maybe with your personal development, your work. That's Mars ruling your 6th. And then also too with your aspirations, being patient with those, building those as well. So this is all in regards to what was a new beginning in late August, back in your 6th house. So if you recall, back in late August, if there was anything new that you started having to do with your routine, having to do with your work, this is a great time to challenge yourself with that. And that's been the new beginning since then. Regarding that, that's been Saturn in your 6th house over the past couple of years, already helping you get disciplined and grounded with the routine and taking all that seriously, and your personal growth and all this and your work. And so, yeah, challenging yourself with that, taking it nice and slow, building it is a great way of working with this week. All right, so that's Wednesday through Friday. Then as we get into the weekend around Friday, Venus does sextile up to Pluto. So speaking of more on the relationship sphere, late November, maybe there was something new you did transform or shift about your perspective on relationships. And now there's a bit of flow with it. Venus in a sextile to that Pluto does suggest that maybe around Friday there's an opening here, a new opportunity. It's not major, but it's something new. And it might just be a day where there's just an opening to connect on a deeper level, or to open up, or maybe you're stripping away some fears or something. And, that's been Pluto in your 7th, helping you strip away all those unhealthy attachments and fears and securities and all this stuff, past patterns, unhealthy patterns, having to do with relationships. And that's been over many years. And as you've been stripping that away, it's been freeing you up and helping you connect to relationships and all this on a deeper level. More openness, more intimacy, more real raw truth. So anyways, all that flows quite nicely. You could even find that you're expressing yourself quite deeply this week, which could be good. Could be a creative week for some of you, maybe even romantic for some of you. Venus does rule your 5th. But generally, I think just a bit of expression. And your 12th, maybe some alone time. Maybe you're feeling quite easygoing this week, or some spiritual activities could be supportive as well. So just an opening, not major, but I think there are some new things continuing to develop, particularly with those relationships there. All right, and then Saturday and Sunday, the sun is going to be shifting into your 8th house. So things are going into an area where it's more about doing this focus and examination about, what matters most to you in life. What matters most to you. And to do that, it does require diving deep. It does require seeing where, yes, we might have some wounds. We might have some doubts. We might have some fears even. And this is what the 8th house is all about. It's about seeing all dimensions of life, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, both sides of the coin, you could say. And through this awareness, we connect to what matters most. And as a result, we learn about ourselves more spiritually. We learn about ourselves more psychologically. We learn about relationships on that deeper level. So anyways, this weekend, going into next week, great to be focused on what matters, what's the deep truth, and all of that could be very energizing. Even that openness and vulnerability can be energizing as well. And I think you'll probably find some new beginnings regarding all of that. I believe it's next week when we have that new moon in the 8th. All right, so Geminis, that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is the first half, yes, there's a lot to learn. I think it's about the practical stuff, the exchanging or learning side of things, which has been your life path, even too about relationships. Then at the same time, Mars going into your 10th means there might be some healing you're doing in regards to your career or productive life in some sense, maybe with your work, maybe with your sense of networks or community. And that could be very rejuvenating and refreshing as well. This square up to Saturn does suggest that it's good to challenge yourself with your work and your routine this week, as was the new cycle that started back in late August. And taking things slow, but seeing the big picture and maybe challenging yourself to do some of these things. Friday, Venus sextiles Pluto, sort of opening maybe with relationships, maybe too with a bit of adventure. Venus in your 9th house has been helping you enjoy the more adventurous spirits of life. Maybe some of you going for walks, maybe some of you travel, some of you philosophy or spirituality, whatever that is, can be enjoyable on Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, the shift of focus into the deeper dimensions of what matters most to you, and having that openness and vulnerability, which can help strengthen your relationship with yourself, with life, and with relationships. All right, so Gemini, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares, and I will see you all next week. Cancer, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look first at your ruler, the moon, who is in the disseminating phase this week, which means coming off of that full moon. It's usually the type of week where we came to the awareness last week, and there's maybe more energy or insight last week. And we start to notice things are dying down. It's still an energetic time, relatively speaking, compared to like the balsamic phase or the ending phase. But this is a time of, continuing to move maybe some of those ideas forward from last week, or continue with that momentum there. So with that, I think the first half quite supportive with your moon in trine to the sun. And then the second half, maybe more on the challenging yourself to cultivate some of those insights or things that maybe you started since last week, or maybe as long as 3 weeks ago during the new moon. So that's the lunar cycle. In terms of the aspects, Mars, who is a big player, is going over Chiron here this first half of the week. So there is some healing taking place. I think particularly about your more expansive view, your belief systems, thinking big, seeing the top-down perspective of your life, and understanding more about what's possible and how you think about things. So that's where the motivation is, in fact, with Mars. And even though Mars is going over that square with Saturn, which means this sort of patience with all this, I think there is motivation and drive to be expanding your horizons. All right, there can be some insight here. There can be some momentum, some confidence, and so utilize it. And it could be for some of you philosophy, spirituality. Others, it might be more about adventure, travel, things like this. But this is a source of motivation. And it's fundamentally about your life path and learning more about that and cultivating it. So anyways, the first half, you might be doing some healing with this adventurous spirit or this open-mindedness. And that's been Chiron, who's recently entered into your 9th. So acceptance, right? Accepting any wounds that come up, any insecurities or doubts or things like that can be very healing and very rejuvenating. Again, this is a neutral aspect. So I think there can be, it can flow. And so with the acceptance, I think, it can naturally feel like you are healing. You are feeling refreshed and rejuvenated as a result. A lot of it, too, might have to do with your self-expression. The first half, you feel like there's any wounds around that. The acceptance can be very rejuvenating. And also, too, with your career or your productive life. Mars also rules your 10th. And in fact, that's kind of what's going on. It's like your whole self-expression is going into this more expansive, open-minded phase, which is Mars in the 9th. And then also to your career is going through this more open-minded or more about marketing or getting the word out there and things like this. So as you do the healing, you'll find it very much supports all this. Now in regards to the square up to Saturn, this is regarding the new beginning since late August, having to do with your self-expression, or maybe for some of you having to do with romance or children, if you have children in your life, new beginning there. Maybe something to do with creative pursuits or small business. Whatever it is you've essentially been taking seriously over these past couple years, having to do with the things you either create or the things that are close to your heart. That's been Saturn in the 5th. So it's good to be patient with all these things, build all these things, particularly this week because of the square up to Mars. Okay. And as a result, I think you will find that you are building your self-expression in much more grounded ways, patient ways, disciplined ways. You are building your career in long-lasting ways versus just the short-term, way. So challenging yourself with self-expression, with career, and again, seeing the big picture can be a great utilization of that. All right, so that's the Mars energy. The first half of the week does have Mercury trine the North Node as a reminder that, yes, the life path in 2017 is taking you towards your sense of self-worth and understanding more and learning more about your sense of self-worth. Okay, and this is internal. And external, it could have to do with maybe about finances, investments, savings, things like this could certainly be an undercurrent to your life. But that's what it is. It's an undercurrent. It's not a major aspect. It's not a major transit. It's just that life is pulling you into this direction. So the more open you are to, I think, learning about your self-worth, your self-reliance, right? This more inner, like your natural gifts, natural abilities, the feeling that, yes, you do have the ability to cultivate your values in life and cultivate that self-worth. I think you'll find as you learn about all this, it's very much supporting you this week. All right. It's also supporting too, maybe your work or your routine, which has been a big emphasis with Mercury, who's been here and was retrograde here over the past month. So still a lot to learn about work, routine, daily activities, anything on that daily level. Then as we get into the weekend, starting Friday, Venus will be sextiling up to Pluto. So there's a bit of opening here, maybe about the work and stuff. It's quite possible. But yeah, this has been a deeper side to things. I think you've been connecting in a deeper way. Maybe involving home and family stuff, maybe about relationships, maybe even about friends and networks or your aspirations. So still great to be enjoying, I think, a bit of that openness and vulnerability and just seeing things in a deeper way, perhaps. Yeah, it can be very enjoyable, and there's an opening for that, right? Or maybe you're connecting on that deeper level, both with life, with yourself, and maybe with relationships. All right, and this is all in regards to since late November. If there was some new beginnings at that time, you were going through some sort of transformation with the work or the routine or some daily things. There's a bit of flow with that this week, and I think an opening to continue to cultivate those matters or a specific thing if it's been anything specific for you. All right, and then Saturday and Sunday, the sun does shift into your 7th house. This is starting a new beginning regarding relationships, one-to-one connections. This is where the next new moon is going to be, I think, next week. So, this weekend, maybe you're just shifting your focus here, and nothing's quite there yet. We have to wait for the sun to form some aspects and for the new moon. But yeah, more focus on relationships can be great. Spending time with those you're close to, new and existing relationships can certainly be cultivated. And it's just all in all a great source of energy for you, right? A great source of focus. And that's what it is too, expressing yourself and bouncing ideas or just expressing yourself with those in your life, I think can be a great way of working with it. So Cancer, the way I would sum up this week is certainly this coming down from the full moon, continuing to cultivate and prolonging essentially the insights you gained last week, and all in all the momentum too, just kind of prolonging that. The first half, we do have some healing taking place, maybe about the possibilities and potentials of your life, maybe about your self-expression, and maybe about your career and your work. All right, so doing that healing can be very refreshing and rejuvenating. Then the square up to Saturn does suggest that 2 steps forward, 1 step back, being patient with all these things. And as a result, seeing the big picture, that all this fun stuff, playful, creative energy of the 5th house does take time, and it does require us to see the big picture. So we have long-term enjoyments instead of just short-term ones, and we're doing the grounded thing. So that's a great way of working with this week. And trying up to the North Node, still lots to learn about your sense of self-worth. Venus sextiling up to Pluto is sort of opening here with maybe the work or routine, maybe involving relationships, or maybe all in all, I think just connecting on a deeper level can be very enjoyable. And then the shift of focus into relationships going into next week. All right, so Cancer, have a fantastic one. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares, and I will see you all next week. Take care. All right, Leo, let's go ahead and have a look here and see what's going on for you this week. So let's go ahead and talk about this Mars, who is a major player. There is this shift since last weekend, I believe it was. Mars went into your 8th house. So recently, there's been more of a motivation, I think, towards really getting down to the bottom of things. Which is essentially what Mars in the 8th house is about. It's about probing. It's about deep diving. It's about investigation. And this can be about yourself. Maybe it's about yourself psychologically or spiritually. Maybe it's about just connecting to relationships on a deeper level, having a bit of openness and vulnerability there. And I think just all in all, you know, your sense of power, but it's not egoic power. It's the power of what happens once you've really connected to what matters most. And you're free from all of the attachments that come along with it. So what I mean by that is it's really good to, right now, be aware of where there might be some fears, some inhibitions, some things that are preventing you from connecting to life on a deeper level, or maybe to yourself on a deeper level, or your relationships. And as you do the stripping away, which I think you are motivated to do, I think the action is there and the intention is there. Then you're connecting to life with that vulnerability and that openness, which is beautiful, right? This is about connecting to what matters most, and in the way that matters most, to the real core of things. So an excellent next couple months, in fact, with Mars in your 8th house to have that openness, have that vulnerability, and the power of once we've stripped away all the fears, and it's the power of life, the beauty of life that comes through us as we're connecting to life, as we're connecting to self and relationships. And this is essentially what, you know, Mars is about. It's about motivation, it's about drive, it's about intention, and that can be a great source of, it'd be a great way to pursue those things that matter to you. So anyways, with this conjunction with Chiron, these first few days of the week, there is some healing taking place with all this. I think it's going to be more neutral in its expression. But if you do feel any wounds or doubts or insecurities regarding these 8th house deeper things, this has been very normal. Chiron's recently gone in here. Know that this is not a reflection of your actual self. This is the internal subjective wounds. But the acceptance there can help you feel healed and rejuvenated and refreshed. And I think you are. I think, you know, this is happening very naturally. So with that, though, Mars squaring up to Saturn does suggest that with this deeper sense of life, it is requiring a bit of patience right now. Okay. And this has been in regards to since late August, when you had the conjunction down here in your 4th house. A lot of you maybe have started something new involving your home or your location, or maybe having to do with your health for some of you. So now you come to your first challenges with this in the larger cycle of this 2.5 years thing that you started regarding this. So challenge yourself, right? That's the best way to get on the right side of this aspect. Challenge yourself with where you can establish your roots, maybe even, you know, your personal life, Saturn in the 4th, your location, whatever it is, being patient with all this, of course, because it does take time. But seeing how you can also too connect to what matters and establish the two, that yes, you can form your foundations, you can connect to life in a rooted way, and at the same time in a deep way, in a meaningful way, and seeing how you can implement both of those things. Now, Mars does also rule your 9th house, so this could be a good time to challenge yourself too with your belief systems, be aware of how you're thinking about things or seeing things, and maybe tap into that adventurous spirit or open-mindedness, although challenging. I think it can be very fruitful. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know, it's the big picture. Things are taking patience with the roots, with these deeper things, with the adventurousness, but with that perspective of challenging yourself, taking the steps, really taking the time to build these areas so that they're solid and real and grounded, I think is a great way of working with this week. This is perhaps the most important aspect we've got going on. Now, this first half, we do have Mercury trining up to the North Node. So this is a reminder, not a major thing, but a reminder that this whole life path is about your independence. I think this first half, you could be learning a lot about yourself, about your independence, about your personal needs, the things you want in life. And it's great to cultivate that, to focus on that. And you could be learning quite a bit about that. Also, too, about your self-expression. I think you've learned a lot about that over the past month, roughly, with Mercury retrograde through that 5th house of yours. But now with Mercury direct, I think implementing the self-expression, implementing maybe even to your values about your self-expression, or values about hobbies or interests or creative things, or romance even, or children, if you have children in your life, cultivating your relationship with them or whatever. So that's all moving forward. And two, maybe even your sense of community or your aspirations are also moving forward this week. So those are a few key areas to continue to cultivate, continue to learn about. And I think as you just continue to learn more about yourself, you're going to find that you're learning more about your self-expression, learning more about your values, things close to the heart, and your networks and your aspirations. So that's the trine to Mercury. And then as we get into Friday, Venus will be sextiling up to Pluto. So there is this sort of opening this week. Probably has to do with relationships. For some of you, it's been a great time to be connecting to one-to-one connections at the moment with Venus in the 7th. It could even be an opening with your career on some regards, or maybe it's just flowing this week. Maybe you're learning a bit. There could be a lot to learn. Practical knowledge, reading books, reading, writing. Venus does rule your 3rd house. And this is all in regards to, since late November, there was a new chapter with this self-expression or creativity or romance or fun or playfulness, whatever this 5th house stuff is about, particularly about stripping away fears of the self-expression. But now that you've kind of done that since late November, there's a bit of flow. And it's, I think, flowing. The self-expression is really supporting the relationships, really supporting the career, really supporting your communication and your mind, even how you're thinking about things, probably seeing the upside of them, how things can be fun and playful and lighthearted, which is the 5th house. So not a major thing, but a sort of opening there involving Venus this week. And then your ruler is going to be shifting signs Saturday and Sunday, going into your 6th house. So I think there is really good focus towards your work going into next week. You'll probably notice this more next week once the sun starts forming aspects and we have the new moon. But yeah, maybe towards your work, personal growth, diet, regimens, day-to-day stuff. Great source of energy, great time to learn about all that stuff, as it always is, and to cultivate that. So it could be a good weekend for personal growth. All right, so Leo, that is the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is that we got Mars over Chiron. There's definitely some healing going on, the deeper dimensions having to do with intimacy or openness or whatever that is. But it can be very refreshing and rejuvenating, challenging yourself with that, knowing that this stuff does take time, knowing that the home, family, and roots stuff takes time as well. And then as we go into, the first half does have that learning about the independence I was talking about, and that's all very much supporting the self-expression. And then Pluto supports the self-expression, sextiling up to Venus, maybe regarding relationships, the career, the communication, all that flows a little bit. And then the weekend, the sun going into the 6th, starting a new chapter about focusing on your personal growth, your routine, and maybe your work. All right. So Leo, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for liking, commenting, and sharing these videos. And I will see you all next week. Take care. All right, Virgos, let's go ahead and have a look at what we've got this week. So let's talk about your ruler, Mercury. He's very direct now, still in his shadow, and will be up and through about the end of January. But that's all right. Things are certainly moving forward. I think you've learned a lot probably about your roots, maybe your home for some of you, your location, some of you maybe your family or your health. And so it's a great week to continue to move that stuff forward, to implement what you've learned essentially regarding that area. Now, the trine up to the North Node does suggest that not only is there a lot to learn about that, this whole life path of 2017 is taking you towards your spirituality. It's taking you towards really finding that acceptance, maybe getting the alone time, spiritual activities, things like that. It's not a major thing. You probably won't feel it very personally, but if you notice, there's an undercurrent taking you towards finding more peace in life, maybe working a bit behind the scenes or whatever that is. So as you focus on that spiritual dimension, if you will, you'll find, I think, you're learning a lot about it this week. And again, continue to cultivate your intuition, which is the 4th house and the 12th house combined, really supported there. And then privacy and alone time and all that kind of stuff could be flowing. And again, supporting the life path there. You may even find, too, that you're learning about your career, or your career is taking on a more personal level as it has been since Mercury's gone direct. All right, so that's your ruler, but Mars is a major player this week. He's going to be going over Chiron Monday through Wednesday. So there is this sort of healing taking place, probably in regards to relationships for you. Mars has recently gone into here, so all of you are likely more motivated and driven towards the whole relationship sector. Maybe about the directness there, really getting down to the bottom of things. Mars is about your wants and needs, and maybe there are some wants and needs here that can be benefiting you and your relationships. With Mars. So anyways, there might be some wounds coming up. There might be some, it's neutral. I don't think that's going to be a challenging thing, but there might be some wounds and some doubts or something in regards to this. Know that you're very good and everything is good with the whole relationship sphere, generally speaking, because Chiron isn't reflection of the actual reality. He's a reflection of the inner wounds, the triggers, the emotional patterns, those types of things. So doing the acceptance of self, acceptance of relationships, or whatever these wounds might be, can be very healing and very rejuvenating. And I think you'll find that very natural, actually, especially as you get into Wednesday, Thursday time, probably feeling that refreshment there. Now, on the same token, Mars is squaring up to Saturn. So there is a bit of collective clash, maybe involving relationships. So do take a step back again, setting the glass down, so to speak, for a second. Because we can really want things with Mars. We want that, thing right away, or maybe it's the relationship communication, or it's the deeper connection, or the truth, or whatever it is, because Mars rules your 3rd and your 8th. Whatever it is, our personal wants, it's important that we allow the ego a bit of space, right, to be aware of the ego, be aware of the self and our personal needs, and that can help this energy work constructively, so we're not rushing into anything, or creating issues or blockage or something like that, or frustrating ourselves, having to feel delayed. So limit yourself, have the discipline this week, I think, is a great way of working with it, seeing the big picture with the whole relationship dynamic, and remembering too that this whole new beginning has been in regards to your whole new thing you're establishing with communication and learning and treating life as a learning place. And that's been where Saturn's been the past couple of years, helping you really develop and build your communication abilities in patient and grounded ways, helping you build your intellect. Maybe if it's more about learning or reading or writing or correspondence, taking that stuff seriously and patiently. This week. So it's about combining the two. How can you combine the mental, communicative, expressive energy into the whole relationship dynamic with groundedness, with balance, and with patience? And as a result, I think you will be finding some good long-lasting things being built from this. Now, this is also in regards to since late August, there was a new beginning with anything new you start at that time involving reading, writing, communicating, things like this. If you can think back, if there was anything like that, maybe it was a shift of perspective or something, or if there's something in particular. It's a good week to challenge yourself. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, seeing the big picture. All right, so that's Mars. Mercury is going to be sextiling up to Pluto on Friday, so there is a bit of opening. I think it is involving your work, your day-to-day tasks. Venus has been here, so I think you can be enjoying this, connecting here on this level, maybe with relationships on that level of improving yourself, and that can be improving relationships and whatnot. But anyways, Venus also does rule your 2nd, so there could be a bit of flow with your values, maybe with finances or something like that. It's possible for some of you. And even too, your adventurous spirit and open-mindedness. These are all the areas Venus rules. And there could be a bit of flow with its sextile to Pluto. And this is in regards to since late November, if there was any new shifts and changes around your home, family, or health. particularly about your values about those things. It's not a major thing. It's hard to really think back to something this minor, but it was there. And so if there was anything in particular that shifted regarding that, this could be an opening this week with that. Maybe some things flowing with the home, family, health, and all that with Pluto there. All right, and then Saturday and Sunday, the sun does shift into your 5th, so there is a new beginning going into next week, particularly once we have the new moon, which I think is next week, in the 5th. And the 5th house is about self-expression. And I think you'll probably notice this shift of focus, maybe focusing more on enjoyment, fun, playfulness, maybe the things close to your heart, romance, creativity, spending time with your children, anything that's our creation and the things we enjoy. So that's the new focus. New beginnings around the corner with that. I think just all in all, good weekend to focus on that more lighter, playful, and passionate side to life. All right, so Virgo, that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is that there is this healing taking place at the beginning of the week. It's more internal, subjective, maybe about relationships, maybe about communication, maybe about the deeper dimensions of things and connecting to, relationships in that deeper way, perhaps. But whatever that is, it's refreshing and rejuvenating as you do that healing and being patient with it all with the square up to Saturn. Again, building this whole stuff you've been establishing about communication, about practical mind and practical knowledge and all that. But can be constructive. And your ruler trining up to the North Node, first half, does suggest a flow of letting go, surrendering, finding that peace can be very supportive this week, as is the home, family, and health sector. Those roots, especially with with Pluto sextiling up to Venus on Friday. All right, and this is all about enjoying perhaps some of the routine or work there, which has been the case. And then over the weekend, a shift of focus towards the self-expression, the creative, the playful energies, or the fun, entertainment, hobbies, interests, things like that can be a great source of energy. All right, Virgo, so have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. And I will see you all next week. Take care. Libras, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look here at the most important things for you this week. First being Mars. Mars is a big player this week. He rules your second house of values and finances. He also rules your house of relationships. So I think those are some key areas this week for you. The first half, I think healing with those matters. I think when it comes to your values, when it comes to relationships, it's been about sort of work or improvement. And it's always about improving yourself, right? Improving ourselves. And this could be everything in your immediate environment. So with this shift, which was, I think, last weekend, Mars coming into your 6th, it's been so good for you to be establishing your routine, putting energy into that, or maybe at work or something like that. Now, there might be some wounds this week regarding this, maybe some wounds about relationships or about your values, but know that it's internal. That it's not a reflection of your ability or not to cultivate your work and routine, or your relationships or whatever it might be. It's subjective. And so as you do that inner acceptance, that healing, you'll find that it's refreshing, it's rejuvenating you. And I even feel like it's going to happen very naturally, particularly by the second half of the week. A lot of you could be feeling quite refreshed with relationships, refreshed with your values and your work and all this. And again, it's been, I think, the whole area this whole taking place with is in regards to your personal growth and putting some positive energy into your work, or finding solutions to problems, or self-development, all of the 6th house stuff. So that's the conjunction with Chiron, but Mars is going to be squaring up to Saturn midweek, Wednesday through Friday. So there is this sort of clash collectively. It might have to do with those key areas, relationships, values, and your work, daily work. And, this is about being patient, like I was saying in the collective reading. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and seeing the big picture. Because the fact of the matter is, this is a very large cycle with Mars. It's 2.5 years. And this is regarding since late August, if there was anything new that shifted around that time about your values, about finances, about investments or savings or something like that, or most fundamentally, just your sense of self-worth, your self-reliance. And so now you're coming up to the first major aspect with this, first major challenge with this. And so that's what you want to do, is challenge yourself here. And that doesn't mean suffering or doing things that are uncomfortable, like uncomfortable in terms of you suffering and drudging through things, but challenge yourself, because this is like working out the muscles. It's like working out. Yeah, it's uncomfortable to do push-ups or to go for a run, but the result is obviously, more strength, more resilience, and just all in all more health, and our health getting better. And in this case, it could be your finances getting better, your values, your sense of self-worth, your routine, your work, your relationships, all those key areas I'm mentioning. So challenging yourself with those areas, I think, can be very constructive. Being patient with it, though, nonetheless. You might be finding you're taking a step back this week, but that's okay. That's how life is. It's sporadic. It spirals. We go up, we come down, but we're constantly evolving, and we never come back to the same point. We're always moving forward. But yeah, this is a great way of working with it. And as a result, you can find that in the long term, probably in another few more months, which will be, I think, what is it? August, September, October, November, December. Probably in about 5 more months, we're going to be coming up to the, full moon phase with this. And that'll be, a time of a lot of this stuff being cultivated at that time. So anyways, very good to challenge yourself with those key areas. Be patient with it. It's been really a patient time. Even though all the planets are direct, it's about seeing the big picture. All right. Then Friday, Venus is going to be sextiling up to Pluto. So there is a bit of flow and opening, I think, that has to do with communication or learning. In fact, Mercury's trying the North Node from this area. So very positive area here for you is about practical knowledge and communication. And so some of you might be journaling this week, writing, communicating, maybe reading some books, taking some courses or studying some things. And that's all very much, all this open-mindedness and learning is very much supporting your life path. And your life path in 2017 is, as an undercurrent, has been very much about you cultivating your aspirations and listening to that. Maybe even to some of you getting in touch with friends, networks, or your community. A lot of positive energy for that area. But in either case, it's a bit of flow there with the mind, communication. It's very much supporting your self-expression, which I think can be enjoyable this week, even though it's been past month or so, with a lot of past things being released with that. But Venus is still in your 5th, so you could be enjoying some hobbies, interests, romance for some of you, spending time with your children, creative energy, entrepreneurship, anything you create in life or that you're passionate about in life. All right, that's where there's a lot of flow. Also, too, with just yourself, Venus being your ruler, sextiling up to Pluto, you're probably feeling quite deep and open, right? And vulnerable even, but it's all very positive. I think it's very, it's just really helping you connect to life on a deeper level, connect to yourself, to relationships on a deeper level, and all of that. All right, and then Saturday and Sunday, the sun does shift into your 4th, so there is a shift of focus towards your roots. And I think it's a great weekend to maybe get some of that home time, family time, maybe some connection to your health, or your body, intuitive time, private time. It's nothing major, but it's just a sort of shift. I think next week, once the sun starts to form some aspects, and then we have the new moon next week, I think it is, you'll find that there is some new beginnings shaping up regarding these roots. All right, so that's the new area for you. But still lots to learn about reading, writing, communication. Mercury trining up to the North Node this week. Sextiling up to Venus around Friday. Could be enjoyable, maybe with the self-expression and passions in your life. This week, the most important aspect, Mars squaring up to Saturn, does suggest a bit of patience here with values, relationships, your work, and just taking things nice and slow, remembering this is part of a much larger cycle that started in late August regarding your values, your sense of self-worth, your self-reliance, and patiently moving those things forward, and maybe doing some healing in regards to that. And that can be very refreshing this week as well. All right, so Libras, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, shares, and if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you all next week. Take care. Scorpion Fucus. All right, let's go ahead and have a look at this week. So Mars, your traditional ruler, is forming a lot of aspects, a lot of very important aspects this week. So let's look at it right at the beginning. Monday through Wednesday, we do have Mars, that ruler of yours, going over Chiron. And for you Fucuses, this is particularly important because Chiron is your modern ruler. So what this essentially symbolizes is that for both of you, since last weekend, there was this shift towards putting some energy into your self-expression. Now, what I mean by self-expression is anything that's close to your heart or anything you create in life. All right, so it could be anything from romance to spending time with your children to creative projects, entrepreneurship, speculation, fun stuff, entertainment, whatever the shift of motivation has been for you personally. All right, so this week there might be some healing in regards to all this right at the beginning. And for you Fucuses, maybe feeling quite direct, quite empowered, in fact, with Mars over your ruler. Maybe it is a good time for you Fucuses to take some action towards that self-expression or those interests or hobbies or things close to the heart. But for both of you, there's some healing taking place nonetheless. And I think it might be about these matters or your perspective on them or something like that. So know that it's not a reflection of the actual environment. It's not that you're necessarily inadequate or something having to do with these fifth house things, as much as it's just an internal wound that's surfacing for some reason. So as you do the acceptance of the wounds, you're going to find it refreshes you, it rejuvenates you, and it empowers you actually to continue to cultivate these things that you are passionate about. So that's a great way of working with Monday through Wednesday, right? Is doing that healing. And I think it's going to come very natural because it's conjunction. But the more aware you are of that, I think it can certainly facilitate it. Then Wednesday and Friday, Mars does square up to Saturn. So all of you do have the Saturn energy in your first house. He's been there for the past couple years. And so it has been a time for you to be very patient and disciplined in general. And so I think sort of incorporating this patience and discipline that a lot of you have developed or evolved into, or these responsibilities you've taken on that has helped establish this. It's great to bring that energy into this week because with Saturn squaring up to Mars, it can feel collectively like, and for your signs in particular, and Aries out there, like there is a bit of blockage or restriction. I'm not saying there definitely will be, but there could be something like that. Or maybe just having to take a step back or something, or examine things in a bigger picture sense and be patient with some things. Or maybe it very much about blockage. So whatever it is, taking a nice, slow, and steady approach, remembering that this is a much larger time period. This is a much larger cycle. This was a conjunction that took place back in late August. So if you recall, back in late August, that was a new shift for a lot of you of establishing something new about yourself, about your personal needs, your personal wants, your independence, some of you, your self-image, right? Things that have to do with self. And now it's your first major challenge with this. And with that, not in general, but just since whatever new has been shaping up since late August. So challenge yourself. That's the best way of getting on the right side of this aspect, is to have the discipline to challenge yourself there. Limit yourself. That's what discipline essentially is. Work those muscles. It's essentially what squares are about, like working out. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't, for some of us, it feels good to go for a vigorous run or do a bunch of exercise, but generally you could say it's uncomfortable in the body. So it's uncomfortable, but it's very rewarding, and it's creating more health and more balance, in your life. So it could be physical, actually, since we're talking about the first house for some of you. It might be a good time to take, not vigorous, but take some, slow and steady exercise routines or something like that, whatever's healthy for you personally, because it is a square. We don't want to overdo it, but work out your muscles just generally in your life is what I mean to say. So with your personal goals, challenge yourself with those things, with yourself, with the things you're intent on, and again, with the self-expression, which is where all this comes back to, right, which is the fifth house. And motivate yourself. There is energy, there is drive towards those things close to the heart, but just know that this is part of a larger thing. It's requiring a bit of patience, or maybe there's some things you can challenge yourself with to express yourself, or something there involving the fifth, right? Maybe it's a good week to challenge yourself to build the muscles to cultivate it. So anyways, that's that. Mars also does rule your 6th, so there could be some good things to challenge yourself with your work or your routine this week as well. And yeah, as a result, it's going to be very constructive. During times of squares is the times when things are really built. If we don't utilize these times, then we don't get the real, we don't get the workout. We don't get the benefits of the challenges of life. Great challenges of life have great rewards. But this is us where we want to challenge ourselves, not have life, challenging us in the sense that we're in a victim mode or anything like that. We want to be proactive with these kinds of aspects. All right, so that's definitely the most important thing you got this week. Again, can be very constructive. Mercury is trining up to the North Node, suggesting that there is this life path direction about career this year. Not totally apparent, but I think you can be learning a lot about career this week, particularly the first half. Maybe learning a lot about your sense of self-worth and your self-reliance, maybe finances and values. That's been actually moving forward for you, which is good. Mercury was retrograde through here. In fact, you got a lot of good aspects up to here, up to the 2nd. This week, in fact, on Friday, Venus does sextile up to Pluto, suggesting that there is a bit of openness here with your values. And it's not major, but it's an opening. Maybe you're just feeling a bit like you can cultivate your values, or you're feeling more self-reliant, or maybe it is financial or something for some of you, an opportunity there maybe. And a lot of it's about your relationships too. Venus rules your 7th, so probably feeling quite open and deep and meaningful in your relationships. And that's because I think you have been connecting on a more emotional way, or more receptive way, you could say. Maybe some of you are spending time with your family or your home or private life, which could be very enjoyable, in fact, with Venus in the 4th. But whatever it is, those personal things and relationships and even your values have a bit of flow here around Friday with the sextile, or maybe a new opportunity there. Not major, but certainly there. Saturday and Sunday does have the sun shifting into your 3rd. So going into next week, there is this new shift of focus, taking you into the communication, learning, reading, writing, sharing. Some of you connecting with your siblings or with your peers, things like this. And this will become more apparent next week once the sun starts forming some aspects and we have the new moon in that 3rd house of yours. But over the weekend, yeah, maybe focusing, or you might just notice a shift of focus towards the more communicative and intellectual side to things, which can be a great source of energy. All right, so Scorpio and Ophiuchus, the way I would sum up this week is definitely this healing in the first half, which is, I think, coming very naturally, very, it could be even easy or just neutral. And as a result of that healing, you are feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, maybe in regards to who you are, your independence, your personal needs, and even your self-expression, those things that are close to your heart. And yes, cultivate them. Put that positive energy there. You got Mars there for about the next couple months. But here with the square up to Saturn this week, being patient with it all, knowing that there's a bigger picture involved. And a lot of it is about the new chapter you started in late August, having to do with yourself or those responsibilities or something like that. And yeah, cultivate them for the long term. Then into the weekend, Venus sextiles up to Pluto, a bit of opening with the personal life, maybe relationships, maybe a bit easygoing, maybe with the values. And Saturday and Sunday, a shift of focus towards learning. And all in all, just treating life as a place to learn, whether it's through a book or through experiences or whatnot. All right, so Scorpio and Ophiuchus, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your support. Liking, commenting, and sharing these videos has been tremendously helpful. And I will see you all next week. Take care. All right, Sagittarius, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's have a look here at the most important things this week. Mars, definitely a big player, and he is going over Chiron here the first half in your fourth house, and this is where Mars has recently entered into. So this is the house of your home. It's the house of your location, the house of your family, and even your health as well. So great areas to put some motivation, put some drive, take some action, set some intentions with these things. But this week kind of being patient with the whole thing, because Mars is going to be squaring up to Saturn, which does suggest this is part of a much larger thing here. And it's important that we're building this area constructively, or maybe we have to challenge ourselves to build this area in some way, our personal life or our roots, our intuitive side, even our emotional side, our sentiments. So anyways, Monday through about Wednesday, there might be some healing taking place in regards to this. It's actually already been going on. Chiron's recently entered your fourth house. So you've already been doing some healing involving these personal things. And with Mars over there, though, it could be activating this, a sort of shift of feeling maybe even refreshed and rejuvenated as a result of doing some of this healing with this area of life. Could even be doing some healing with your self-expression this week, things close to the heart, things you've created, things you're passionate about, could be going through rejuvenation. Also things too in regards to your alone time, your spiritual time out, and getting in touch with your spiritual self. So that spiritual area is actually what's the bigger picture here. This is where you had Saturn the past couple years and Mars conjoining Saturn back in late August. So this whole cycle having to do with this spirituality started in many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways back in late August. And so in late August, maybe there was a new chapter about finding more peace or understanding where you can let go and surrender in life. Basically let go of everything outside of your immediate control, because that's how we find peace, is awareness, is acceptance, living in the present moment. And that's been a great area for you to challenge yourself, which has been Saturn. Whether it's spiritual, whether it's even psychological, whether it's maybe just getting more alone time or tranquil time, whatever it's been. So now a great week to challenge yourself with that. Challenge yourself with maybe some spiritual exercises, spiritual activities, maybe getting the alone time or seeing where you can let go. And that letting go can be bringing in more peace and tranquility in your life. So that can be very constructive. Be patient with all that. And again, it's about incorporating a bit of the personal life here and the self-expression and all that in a patient way. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, seeing where you can cultivate your personal life, where you can cultivate your spiritual life, and that can be very constructive in the long term. All right, so along with this, the first half, we do have Mercury trining up to the North Node as a reminder that the life path direction has been taking you towards expanding your horizons. Maybe it's been about philosophy or spirituality in terms of the knowledge of it, the wisdom of it. For some of you, maybe it's about travel or adventure. And it's not a major thing, but it's this sort of pull. Life is helping you access this open mind, this adventurous spirit. And I think it's a great week for that with Mercury trining the North Node. In fact, a lot of things are moving forward for you Sagittarians, because Mercury's been retrograde through your sign this past month. And now he's got his momentum back. So things are, slowly but surely moving forward, having to do with you, your independence, your personal goals, even relationships and career. These are all areas Mercury rules. So could be emphasizing relationships and career this week. In fact, there could be a bit of flow with that, with the trine up to the North Node. It's possible. But whatever it is, I think things regarding you in a more, immediate environment sense, all right? Because this whole watery stuff we're talking about before, personal life and spiritual, it's kind of more under the current, or in the home life or whatever, but in the more active life, there's a lot of support having to do with you and your personal needs and relationships and career and all that. And then as we get into the weekend, Venus sextile is up to Pluto there from the 1st. So there could be some positive changes here in terms of you communicating yourself maybe easy or deeply or vulnerable, in just a more open sort of way. You may even find too that your work is flowing a bit this week, particularly the second half, with Venus sextiling up to Pluto, maybe even to networks, friends, community things, organizations, a bit of flow also. All right, so that's the Pluto sextile Venus on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, we do have the sun shifting into your second house. So where there has been a lot of focus on self, and still will be, with these goals or your self-image or learning about yourself, there is this shift of focus going into next week about your values. And this could be your material values, such as your finances, your resources, your investments, things like that. This is going to be a new chapter for you next week once we have the new moon, which I believe is next week. And but this weekend, the shift of focus, anything you value, could be a great source of energy, prana, and life force. Maybe you just enjoying the simple life, whatever it is, the material life. All right, so Sagittarius, the way I would sum up this week is certainly Mars. Mars is the most important planet here. Recently gone into your fourth. Your energy levels might be at a bit of a low. Mars at the bottom of the chart, Mars in Pisces, in a relatively speaking, in the surrounding months and whatnot. But it's a good time to put that energy and motivation into your sentiments. Home life, family life, maybe your health. This is the area in which you can gain that drive and motivation, but with patience, with a square up to Saturn, taking it nice and slow, remembering to get that alone time, that receptive time, and patient with the self-expression as well, and things close to the heart. But as a result, yes, you're constructively building these areas and seeing the big picture, and it is part of a much bigger picture with those things. All right, then positive support towards expanding those horizons and still learning more about self and personal goals and your personal needs with Mercury in your first house. Things moving forward with relationships and career. And then some positive energy here to communicate, learn, read, write, share around Friday maybe. And then Saturday and Sunday, the sun does shift into your second, which does suggest that there's this new shift of focus towards your values, material and otherwise. All right, so Sagittarius, have a fantastic week. Thank you for all of your likes, comments, and shares, and supporting this channel in general. And I will see you all next week. Capricorns, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look at what we've got going on this week. First of all, the sun is going to be shifting into your sign over the weekend. So for those of you very early Capricorns in this Sidereal Astrology who have your birthdays this weekend, watching for your sun sign, happy birthday. But for all of you, sun, moon, or ascendant, there's this shift of focus going into next week of this new beginning of what has been a very watery time, very receptive time. In fact, the sun will still be in this 12th house this week up until the weekend. So still a good time to finish up or continue to learn more about yourself spiritually or psychologically or get that alone time. Essentially finding peace in life is what the 12th house is all about. Peace about self and life and doing the acceptance of life and how things are, and acceptance of self, and all these things that come to the surface, these human things, right? Which come to the surface as we dive deeper with the spiritual body, as we relax into it, as we find that peace. And really, what the 12th house is all about is about letting go of everything outside of your immediate control. Because even the internal spiritual self is not within control. It's not at all. The only thing we have control over is how we respond and how we react to these things, whether it's the internal feelings or whatever it is, the aspects of self, or it's life, the external environment. So as we accept and we let go and we detach from what we don't have control over, in other words, we anything that does not involve us responding and taking certain actions towards it, letting it go can free us up, can help us find spiritual liberation and peace. And that's essentially what's going on, and still kind of is going on, even going into next week, because you still got Mercury in the 12th. But with the Sun leaving the 12th, it's certainly putting more of a shift towards now your goals, your independence, your drive, those personal needs of yours and active things going into next week. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at these aspects. We've got Monday through Wednesday, Mars is conjoining up to Chiron. And Mars is a big player. He's going to be squaring up to your ruler Saturn here Wednesday through Friday. So first of all, in regards to the shift, Mars has recently gone into your third, which means it is a great time. And you may have noticed this shift since last weekend of getting into maybe some of the intellectual or communicative side of things. On an intellectual level, some of you might be reading some books. Some of you might be doing some writing. Others might just getting more involved with communication. Some may be connecting with your peers or community or your siblings in a sense. So whatever it is, I think generally though, really putting some positive motivation and drive into your intellectual stimulation, right? Seeing where you can learn, seeing where you can share, where you can communicate, where you can exchange with others. All this can be a great source of motivation. Now the thing is, with the conjunction with Chiron, Monday through Wednesday, there might be some wounds about this. There might be some things you're healing about all this, and this is very natural, very normal. Know that you're very good here in this area. It's just that there's internal wounds that you are healing. And as you do that, as you approach these things, communication, even approaching maybe a bit of a private life, personal life, emotional life, and maybe even to sense of friends and community on that level, your aspirations. But you approach these things in general that you might be motivated towards. Know that through the acceptance that it's the healing process, and it's not a reflection of the actual external environment. You're very good here in this area, just the wounds that you're healing within yourself. And as a result, yes, refreshment and rejuvenation. Now, when we get into Wednesday and Friday, there is a square up to your ruler. So first of all, with a square to Mars, you might be feeling quite rash or maybe quite direct or independent, or you're wanting some things now. Could be the case. So if you're feeling anything like that, where the ego is really strong or there's frustration or something like that, just be very, very patient, which again is, that's obvious for you Capricorns. You are patient. But I just mean in terms of in that immediate moment, because the way Mars comes across is like we want it now, or there's something we got to do right away and take the action, or we can be reactive. So I think this is about the presence, and this is about, again, the 12th house, bringing that attention to the self there, taking the step back, and just taking things one step at a time, nice and slow. There's a much bigger plan here, a much bigger picture at work regarding these things, and a lot of it is specifically regarding your aspirations, and maybe even to, again, networking or something like that. So you'll know what this is, because if you think back to late August, that's when you had the conjunction with Mars and your ruler in the 11th. So back in late August of 2016, you maybe started something new with aspirations, or maybe started something new with your network circles or community. So whatever that's been, now you're at your first major challenge with this. And so being patient with those aspirations, with those ideals, seeing the big picture, right? And then working on the intellectual side of it, right? Learning, reading, writing, sharing, communication. That's where you can really do the work, so to speak, and challenge yourself to cultivate those things. All right, and then again, also too, being patient with things relating to home, family, and your health, maybe challenging yourself in those areas, working those muscles out so they're stronger. And also too with your, again, we talked about it, your aspirations. I think aspirations really is the big key, because Mars rules that 11th, Saturn's in the 11th, and that's where the conjunction was. All right, so that's Mars this week. The first half does have Mercury trining up to the North Node, so there is positive energy for you to really get into the deeper side of life. Getting open and vulnerable and all that good stuff could be very supportive. Lots to learn about all that, and again, learning about that peace and spirituality and releasing and acceptance. That could be very supportive. In fact, Venus sextiling up to Pluto does mean that there is, I think, a deeper connection going on with your self-expression and maybe even with your work and your career. Venus ruling those areas, sextiled up to Pluto, does mean that there is a bit of openness in these areas. Okay, self-expression, career, maybe even too in the sense of your values, your resources, your material life, or your sense of self-worth. All right, could be also supportive this week, and it's because of the transformations and changes you've done with yourself spiritually or psychologically. All right, and then over the weekend, the sun shifts into the first, new beginning here for all of you in a sense, and so there's a shift out of a more receptive and watery area into a more active and immediate area of goals and yourself and all that. Even though there'll still be a heightened intuition with Mercury in the 12th. Listening to your dream space and all that, whatever that is, communicating in a more receptive way, but definitely a shift going into next week. All right, so Capricorn, the way I would sum this up is essentially what you've got is the beginning of the week. You got some healing, as we all do. Might have to do with communication or intellectual side of things. Might have to do with those aspirations of yours, and maybe even to your health, home, family, good areas to heal. Then about midweek, Wednesday through Friday, there is a bit of collective clash going on. So it's really going to come down to how we respond to this aspect personally. And I think getting on the right side of it is to challenge yourself here, to work those muscles, build those muscles in regards to your aspirations, being patient with it, knowing there's a bigger picture involved here. Also too with your home, family, and health. And the way you can really do this is by putting some of that positive energy into learning, practical learning, or into learning about communication or something, or practical side of things, or connecting with community or your siblings or your peers or something like that. Whatever it is, again, just like working out, it is uncomfortable, but we do build health in those key areas. All right, and then as we get into the weekend, there is support going into the receptive area, probably easy going, in fact, maybe with your values, that might be flowing, your self-expression could be flowing, career also. It's just an opening for that. It's not major. And then the weekend, once the sun starts to go into your sign, particularly next week, once the sun starts forming aspects, I think you're going to find more independence, more drive, more motivation, and more of that more active energy of life. All right, so Capricorns, have an excellent week. I want to thank you all very much for all of your likes, comments, and shares of these videos. And I will see you all next week. Take care. Aquarius, welcome to your portion of the weekly forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look at the most important thing this week. I would say Mars being a big player, especially because he's going to be squaring up to your ruler Saturn. So let's look at Mars. Mars has recently, since last weekend, shifted into your second house of your values. So a lot of you have been, I think, more motivated to pursue your values in life, whether they're your material values, such as your resources, finances, investments, savings, things like that. It can be a really good source of motivation here. But all values, and I think most fundamentally just your sense of self-worth and self-reliance. And putting positive energy into that, intention, motivation, drive, can be a great source of energy, and it can really help cultivate these things over the next couple months. You're going to have Mars in that second. Now this week, though, with the squares and all this, it is about patience and just kind of taking a step back for a second if need be. But at the beginning of the week, Monday through Wednesday, you might feel there's probably some healing taking place in regards to all this. Maybe you're feeling a bit wounded or doubtful or insecure or something regarding your ability to cultivate the things you value in life, or maybe specifically about your self-reliance or sense of self-worth. So know this is very internal and very subjective, and it doesn't necessarily mirror your external environment. In fact, it doesn't. You're likely very good here in this area. It's just that there's this now healing taking place within. So as you do the acceptance, right, you accept these wounds or whatever comes to the surface, you do that inner healing, I think you're going to find a bit of refreshment and rejuvenation. In fact, I think it's going to happen very naturally. But I think with that awareness, it can really facilitate this. It might also have to do with your communication. It might also have to do with learning, reading, writing, maybe even your career. Maybe there's some healing taking place there in that perspective. All right, so taking the time to do that, I think, can be excellent Monday through Wednesday. Then as we get into Wednesday through Friday, the middle part of the week, there is a bit of clash collectively with the square up to Mars. With Saturn, being your ruler, this is your ruler who's being squared by Mars, right? So particularly here, if you are feeling like you're feeling rash, or there's something that you want to do, or you're reacting to something, or there's something in your environments requiring some immediate action or something like that, it's good to just, as best as you can and situation permitting, take it as slow as you can. Take a step back, take a breath if you can, versus the reaction or rushing into it. Or it may just be the ego is really strong and we're just feeling blocked and frustrated and even angry sometimes with square ups to Mars, because it can feel so, our egos are so restricted. So patience, I think, is really the key with this, and challenge yourself, though. I think challenging yourself not only with the healthy expressions of action, but with these key areas. This is all in regards to, since late August, you had a conjunction in the 10th. So if you think back to late August, you'll likely see that there's something new about your career or something that came to light at that time. A new perspective, or maybe something quite literally new. So you're at the first challenge of that beginning since late August. So that's exactly what you want to do, is challenge yourself. It's a great way of getting on the right side of this square versus in the victim mode, which is things happening to us. You want to be proactive here and challenge yourself, build those muscles. It's like working out. It's uncomfortable, but it obviously brings more health to your life, and it's very good, very positive thing, makes you stronger and more resilient. So it's just like that, involving, I think, your career, your productive life, challenging yourself there, being patient with it. Same with the values or the finances, the material life, or your sense of self-worth, being patient with these things, challenging yourself there too. Again, that's the focal point of where you can put that positive energy. And being patient too with the career, in the sense of, not only the bigger picture sense, but the everyday sense, and communication, right? The exchanging the communication, taking the time for that, being patient with that, or maybe with the intellectual side of things, or just doing your best to treat it all as kind of a learning process and see what you can learn from all this. But anyways, it's going to vary in degrees for all of you. It's not a major thing. I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but it is a good time to challenge yourself and move those things forward, particularly with career, with your values. I think are the two key areas here. All right, then around the same time, this early part, you do have a lot of positive support here with, I think, community or your aspirations. You've got Mercury trining up to the North Node as a reminder that this whole year, 2017, is about establishing relationships. So new relationships, existing relationships, this is all the life path. It's taking you in that direction, which is great. Lots to learn about it this week. Also, same with your aspirations and community things. Then around Friday, after this whole square stuff, Venus does sextile up to Pluto, which does suggest that there is some positive energy here for you to be enjoying life, enjoying yourself really too, maybe feeling good, looking good, maybe connecting to relationships, maybe at home, maybe with family, maybe with a bit more of an adventurous spirit of life. All of this stuff is flowing quite nice. And you could be feeling like there's some positive, some more positive implementation of your values in that sense. In this sense of, cultivating the things that are important to you, but here just simply enjoying the things you do have in your life and being grateful for what you have. And that can flow quite nice. And then Saturday and Sunday, you do have the sun shifting into your 12th, so you are entering into a receptive time, which I think you'll probably notice more so next week once the sun starts forming some aspects and once we have a conjunction, the new moon in the 12th. But Saturday and Sunday could be good for getting some of that alone time, receptive time, time out, getting in touch with yourself spiritually, releasing everything that's outside of your control, right? So you can find that peace. Could just be good for rest and that kind of thing. All right, so Aquarius, I think the most important thing is, of course, Mars, who has been shifting into your second house. A great area to challenge yourself this week is with the values, with your sense of self-worth, maybe the finances, things like that. Taking the big picture approach, the patient, mature, grounded approach with all of it as best as you can, and doing the healing there can be very constructive. And again, it's all in regards to the new beginnings that you started since late August involving your career or your productive life. Okay, it's the first challenge there. Challenge yourself. It's a big picture energy. I think in about 5 or 6 months, we'll be in the opposition, which will be the high point. But this is where you can really work those muscles. Then Friday, Venus sextiling Pluto does give a bit of flow here with the community or aspiration stuff, friends maybe, and your values, your independence. Enjoying life. Venus in the first house, feeling good, looking good. That could be very supportive this week. And then things top off with the sun going into the 12th, maybe enjoying some of the receptive life, spiritual life going into next week. All right, Aquarius, so have a fantastic one. Thank you for all of your likes, comments, and shares, and I'll see you all next week. All right, Pisces, let's go and have a look at the most important things for you this week. So first things first, Mars has recently entered into your sign last weekend. So there has been a bit more motivation and drive, I think, to cultivate your independence, maybe cultivating a bit of your personal needs, your goals in life, things like this. But because of this position, in terms of where everything else is placed, there's this sort of importance of taking perhaps a step back or just being very patient with all of this, particularly because Mars is going to be squaring up to Saturn Wednesday through Friday. But before that happens, Mars is going to go over Chiron. So there's this healing that's taking place, I think, with you, with your motivation levels, with your drive, your ambitions, and all this. And if you feel any wounds about it, any insecurities or doubts, know that it's all internal, it's subjective. It doesn't represent the actual external environment. Know that you're very good here, but there is some inner wounds that maybe you can accept. And it's through the acceptance that you're healing, you're rejuvenating, and I think by midweek and onward, you're feeling quite refreshed with all of this. And so it is a great week to challenge yourself with these personal needs of yours, in the sense of, yes, cultivating your goals, cultivating those things that are important to you, but again, with that patience and that sort of step back. Because Wednesday through Friday, Mars will be squaring up to Saturn, which does mean that collectively there can be a bit of a blockage or having to take a step back, 2 steps forward. There's things moving forward for you with the, independence and all this, but yes, there is also this bigger picture at work. So it's about the long road, the big picture, doing the patient thing, the discipline thing, right? The pragmatic thing. And this is in regard specifically to what you started in late August, probably having to do with the more philosophical or open-minded or adventurous stuff in life. Some of you maybe have started something new with studies or universities around that time. Some of you may have, or maybe just taken a new direction with it. Some of you maybe with travel or adventure, things like this, philosophy, spirituality. So whatever that was in late August that shifted and took on a new direction involving your open mind and involving possibilities and potentials, but them taking time. It's a great week to challenge yourself with that. And I think the area to challenge yourself with is to do this examination of your personal needs, of your independence, and maybe taking some actions that do require those immediate steps, even though they're uncomfortable, because the square and Saturn are all about like working out muscles. You know, it's uncomfortable to work out, but obviously it brings more health and balance. And this is the time when things can be certainly constructively implemented in your life, particularly having to do with yourself, having to do with your open mind and your adventurous spirit, and even too having to do with your values or maybe finances, your resources. It's good to take the patient approach to that this week as well, since Mars does rule your second. All right, so that's Mars this week. This first half does have Mercury trining up to the North Node, so there is positive energy going towards the life path. I think there's a lot to learn about your day-to-day work or your routine. That's really been the whole life path, taking you into that direction of your personal growth, personal development, things like this. And it's a good week for that. In fact, I think you've learned a lot about your career or your productive life lately, this past month roughly, with Mercury retrograde through here. And so that stuff is moving forward this week. Maybe even two relationships moving forward a bit, which there should still be some opportunities there. To cultivate some new and existing ones. Maybe some things moving forward with your home life or family life with Mercury direct as well. So those key areas, your roots, your relationships, and even your work could be a bit of flow this first half in particular, but really all week long, because come Friday, Venus then sextiles that 10th house up to Pluto. And so around Friday, maybe you could be enjoying a bit of alone time, receptive time, maybe learning, reading, writing, things like that. Maybe just connecting to life on a deeper level, which is good, but it's very receptive and easygoing. It's not a major aspect, but certainly there, certainly available. And again, could be putting some positive energy back into that 10th house. Then Saturday and Sunday, the sun does shift into your 11th, which means next week, when we have the new moon and the other aspects, that's going to be a new beginning here for you in terms of your aspirations. And maybe even some of you too, cultivating some networks, friends, community type things. So whatever it is, I think just all in all, a good weekend to shift the focus in terms of what are your aspirations? What are your ideals and hopes and wishes for the future? And maybe doing some of those things in terms of spending time with friends or cultivating the things that you consider larger than yourself, right? Or maybe internet, social media, all of that can be a good source of energy. So Pisces, the way I would sum up this week is certainly Mars in your first house. Great time to be challenging yourself, being patient with independence, with your goals, your personal needs, your self-image, learning more about yourself, doing some healing with all of this. And the square up to Saturn, as a reminder, this is all part of a much larger cycle that has to do with taking the slow and steady approach to the possibilities, or the open mind, or the wisdom, or the learning, or the adventure, whatever that's been. And as a result, yes, it can certainly be constructed, and it's being built. It's a great week to build that, because again, things are built during these time periods. Mercury trines the North Node is a reminder that there is positive energy this week and things moving forward with your career, with relationships, with your family life, also with your work. And a bit of receptivity, alone time around Friday could be enjoyable, just as a minor note. And then Saturday and Sunday, the sun in the 11th suggests a new week, next week, having to do with your aspirations and network circles. All right, so Pisces, have an excellent week. Thank you again for all of your support, liking, commenting, and sharing these videos. And I will see you all next week. Take care.